Now this is a unique electric bike. This is an E-Moto cargo bike. I think one of the only ones ever produced. I'm hanging out with Sam, owner of Electric Bicycle Center here in Fullerton, California. I've seen this bike a few times because I come here to check out all the really unique electric bikes, and you know, I don't think they sell it anymore. Again, this one was pretty unique. I just want to hit the specs before we get into it. What is that, Sam? I noticed that.
Parking brake. So what goes on here is you can set the parking brake. A lot of people think those are like training wheels down there, but that's not actually training wheels. What those are is it's a kickstand, but it's a rollable kickstand. So you got to have a parking brake, because if you take the parking brake off and there's any tilt at all, the bike will just start rolling away.
And when you're loading it, that's no good.
Yeah, so I used to use this bike to take all my cargo or go to the post office, which is like 4 blocks down the road. And I mean, I'd have as many as 10, 12 packages in here. And in a warehouse situation, you could load this up with over 100 pounds of gear and the bike won't fall over because it's got this massive kickstand, and then you just pull it down the warehouse with you.
That is sweet. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about some of the other stories about the company, but I also want to list off just kind of what's going on here. When was this bike made? You know, what year do you think?
I think this was around 2008. It was it was on a pedestal in the middle of the E-Moto booth at Interbike, and I saw it sitting on that pedestal, and I never heard anything about it after that. And it was probably 3 or 4 years later, like around 2010, 11, maybe 12, I asked, hey, whatever happened to the cargo bike? And they're like, that thing's sitting in the back of the warehouse. You want to buy it? And I was like, yeah, how much you want for it? And they're like, well, let us build a new battery pack for you. And I think they use a 9 amp hour, 36 volt battery pack. They put all new Samsung cells in there. They shipped it down to me, and I had to assemble the whole thing up, put the basket on here. It was really clean looking when I got it, and it's obviously sun faded because I've had it outside. I always push this one outside the front door.
It's an attention getter.
It's well, to say the least. It's a unique bike for sure.
It is a really unique bike, and some of the things that I love about it is that it has an internally geared rear hub, Sturmey Archer. Is it 3-speed?
Yeah, 3-speed.
3-speed. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're starting to see now from, I don't know, I've seen them on Calc-Offs, I've seen them on the Faraday bikes, and it's like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like, it's all tucked in, and it keeps your chain tight and stuff. But again, 2008, and was it a lithium battery to start too?
Yeah, it's a 36 volt, 9 amp hour.
But even when they repacked it, because 2008 for a lithium battery is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, and the other things, just to, you know, it's got the adjustable angle seat post. Is it a 350 watt geared motor?
350 watt.
350 watt. Is this a suspension, or is that for
that's
suspension seat post?
An air pump.
Jeez, I mean, that is awesome. It's got the fenders. There's just a lot of cool accessories. Even the ergonomic grips up here, just to make this, I don't know, comfortable. And it was comfortable. I hopped on this thing, I pedaled it around. I was like, was it a throttle mode or something? But it actually has a torque sensor down here. And there's a little bit of play, like there's a little bit of a springy feeling on it, but it worked surprisingly well. It was more sensitive. It wasn't just on off.
Yeah, this is a product I could see out at like Interbike or Burning Man, you know, somebody want to cross the playa with some big
like
dragon
an art car,
or something,
or on the front of this
you could carry
thing.
a passenger in the front if
your
you
passed out friend, you know, whatever.
Perfect. There you go.
So it's, again, I'm sorry, I'm doing like the review sort of approach. I do want to hear a little bit more about the story. It's just to give you some perspective. Like, this bike was kind of ahead of its time, and even if you can't get the cargo version, you know, with, again, this is just, it's connected right to the head tube, so it's really stable. It's got the brakes and kind of the training wheels. Those are retractable, right? So when you ride it, like, what is that?
Yeah, so you step on this lever here, and when it's lubed up properly, that hydraulic rod will retract the kickstand.
It's like on a trunk of a car.
And then you can ride it, and you can, a lot of people
you can
think,
really
oh,
turn.
That's a kickstand. You can't lean this bike. It actually leans fairly well. You can go over with it. And then when you get to your location, put down your kickstand and set your parking brake.
So your parking brake. And then we've got like a big, you know, pretty heavy duty rear rack too on this thing.
Yeah. So I sold this bike actually to a customer at one time, and he was an old lifeguard. He'd been a lifeguard for 50 years, and he lived in Seal Beach here in Southern California. And his business plan was he wanted to deliver propane over to Newport Back Bay, all the campers at Back Bay.
Cool.
And he would put a 5-gallon propane tank in the front basket and another 5-gallon propane tank strapped to the back rack here. That's 10 gallons of propane, and he'd be going up and down the boardwalk on the beach. And he did that for a couple of years, and eventually brought it back and sold it back to me. And
he was moving.
Here it sits. Yeah,
right?
He moved out to the Salton Sea. So
I mean, this is like zombie apocalypse mobile right here. You're carrying your propane, and
yeah, it looked nice before it got all sun faded the way it is now. Actually,
I think it's kind of special. But what I was getting at is people might own other like versions of E-Moto, and you were talking about how they kind of repacked your battery. What do you do now? If like, how many of these are on the road?
Thousands. Not this model, but E-Moto sold the Liberty, the Velocity, the Ridge 4.5 was one that they sold tons of. That has a Silverfish on it. These had a unique battery on it. Let me show you how this comes off real quick if I can find the
The
keys.
Silverfish looks like this, but it usually is silver aluminum alloy on the outside, and it slides up.
Yep.
Yeah.
These, you put the key in here and turn, and then hold on to level here, and it pulls out sideways like this.
That's cool.
And then pops off. And that's the battery pack. So yeah, there are thousands of people that have bought an E-Moto product, and E-Moto is unfortunately no longer in business, and they're wondering, hey, where do I go? I get phone calls all the time. And there are definitely different companies you can go to get your battery pack. Call, just check Google or information, and you're seeing more and more people that are able to rebuild these battery packs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. It's kind of cool to hear, you know, breathing new life into the older bikes and stuff. When do you think they went out of business, Sam?
I want to say probably about 3 years ago, probably. So it's 16 now, so maybe 2013. So it's been 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like you'd gotten a couple of these as trade-ins or whatever in the past, and you know.
We sold the E-Moto brand actually. Yeah, we were selling the E-Moto brand right up until the very end. Interesting enough, here's a side note. We were selling. We still had inventory after they went out of business. So I had to personally warranty the bike for the customer.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd say, okay, I'll give you a 1 year warranty. And there was one particular customer in mind. He was about 9 months into ownership and his battery just wore out.
Oh no.
You know, but he was very adamant, like, you told me I could get a 1 year warranty. So I actually rebuilt his battery pack for him.
Wow, so
And,
you've done that. You've packed a battery.
No, I sent it out and had it done.
Okay, because I was like,
mean,
man.
I paid for that to be done for the customer. And the bike was like a blowout clearance bike. I think I sold it for like, $600, and the battery pack cost me $200.
You know what you're too nice. I'm always saying that, but this is really cool to see. I just wanted to call out, like, here's an iZip that has kind of a similar, this is the Metro, similar basket, and then we've got the Juice Rider. So this is a pretty popular style, but none of them are quite as large or has that training wheel. This one does have a great sort of an optional center stand kickstand. It keeps it really stable, but this is kind of in a class of its own. What is that, Sam, this plastic thing here?
That was when I pulled it out of the box. I never took it off. That's part of the packing.
Yeah, well, you don't have to take it off
I just left it on there.
And that's so it doesn't punch through. So a lot of times when e-bikes are shipped, they put that on.
That thing's been on there for 6-7 years at least.
This is a special moment. We took it off. They've also got the cafe lock. That's designed to put that rod through the rear wheel, which it's activated right now. And then when you put the key in, it locks the key in place.
Unlocks.
And then so you can't get the key out unless you lock the bike. And that'll just keep this from walking off if you park it outside of a cafe and go in and get your croissant. And
I would call this more of an industrial cargo bike.
Okay.
Not so much for the general public. For maybe somebody that had a big warehouse, you could ride around a big warehouse and pick up inventory, and it would cut down the walk time to get pull parts from like a massive inventory.
Yeah.
And then again, you do your parking brake and you just roll your bike down the way and start loading up that basket.
Some of the other things I noticed when I was riding is like it's got the fenders, they're going to keep you pretty dry. The chain guard is a little bit loose. It looks like at one point it was connected back here, but just the sun is, on plastic if you leave a bike outside. But the battery is still going. When did they repack that for you?
Man, it must have been around, I'm going to say about 2010, 2011.
So it's been like 6-ish years, and the battery is still good. And that's, with you riding it occasionally, keeping it charged, so these can last.
You gotta maintain it. And I really like E-Moto's battery charger size. It is tiny, and it weighs like nothing.
And you can pull the plug out of that end of it, and it looks like maybe it's 1.35 out. So maybe it's a little bit smaller. A lot of times chargers now are 2 amp, sometimes even more, but you're right, that's really compact, so it doesn't take up your backpack or your cargo space. Looks like you added a cycle computer?
The customer that I sold it to did, yeah.
Okay, and then we've got like a battery gauge up here with some dots. Is that it? You turn it on back here on the battery?
Yep.
And then you just start pedaling and it goes?
Yeah, so the on-off switch is right here actually. Just flip the switch there.
Okay.
Actually, it was on.
I kind of want to, do you want to hop on it and
sure, I'll cruise it around the parking lot.
Demo it? I think that would be kind of cool to see. And with the front mounted motor, a lot of times I'm saying, the front wheel can spin out a little bit, but with a 350 watt, it's not that big, and that's where a lot of the weight is. So on this bike, it makes a lot of sense, and you get that internally geared rear hub. Go for it, dude.
All right, here we go.
Woo! Pretty quiet, too. Nice. Mind if I take a turn?
Hey, you're up, Court.
Sweet. We're being extra careful. We forgot our helmets for this one, but
Yeah, be safe.
normally if we weren't in a parking lot. Yeah, just the torque sensor is kind of neat. It's a little bit delayed. Like there's definitely, and the brakes actually don't work super well because the rubber's probably hard, a little bit older. But yeah, I can see why they changed a lot of these to cadence sensors or like the TMM4 torque sensor at the rear, because this one's just, there's kind of like a spring in there, and there's a little bit of play when you pedal. You're almost like, it doesn't feel as fluid. There's a little bit of bounce going on. So, you know, look, no one can really buy this electric bike. I tried to do the review thing just to sort of call out differences between something that's older but really cool for its time and some of the newer electric bikes. I wasn't going to do a write-up on this just because, again, you can't really buy it, but feel free to leave some comments, share your stories about maybe an E-Moto electric bike you've got, or help people with resources on where to fix them. For more electric bike reviews, and cargo bikes in particular, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com, and ride safe. It was a bad example this time. Cheers.